Are in for a cold night tonight across Kentuckiana, and with that comes chances for rain, and if we're lucky, maybe a few flurries. Metro Public Works already preparing to monitor high-risk roads and bridges for freezing. Thanks so much for joining us here on the night team. I'm Isaiah. Kim Martinez. Doug has the night off. We're getting you right to your weather first with meteorologist Christina San Juan. Christina, we're not expecting much to actually stick, but many would certainly, of course, welcome some snow.
Oh yeah, absolutely, especially considering how pretty it is when it's falling. Many of us across Kentuckiana did have some really gorgeous views earlier today. At this point, though, we kind of have this mix of a rain and snow. Now, any snow you do see is going to come down very lightly, so don't expect anything crazy, and any accumulations tonight and tomorrow more likely to be just on the grasses and the elevated surfaces. Now, as we take a closer look across the area, we do have some very light flurries around Paoli, stretching down to Corydon, Indiana, and back toward Tell City. Folks around Scottsburg that we just showed you in that live camera here, probably just some very light sprinkles. But as we take a look at the wider view, you can see most of that action is still well out of our area, and I do think most of it's going to be missing us. However, we will be clipped, especially if you're to the west of I-65 overnight tonight and first thing tomorrow morning. Likely to wake up to a couple of snowflakes out there before that eventually just becomes scattered and very light through the course of the afternoon. Tomorrow's also going to be very cold. Temperatures across the board pretty much not going to be making it out of the 30s. Heading into tomorrow evening, we finally start to see that activity wrap up, and then going to pave the way for a pretty nice end to 2023 and start to 2024. I'll have those details in the 7-day forecast coming up. Isaiah.
We will see you in a minute, Christina. Thank you so much. Now, after 3 years, a southern Indiana man has learned his fate after putting an officer's safety at risk during a domestic incident back in 2020. Sebastian Beck, who already pleaded guilty to battery charges, has now been sentenced to 16 years. WHAS 11 Night Team's Taylor Woods and photojournalist Jessica Farley talked to prosecutors who believe this stiff penalty sends a message.
Sebastian Beck will now serve 16 years after pleading guilty to charges of attempted battery against an officer and domestic battery. It all circles around a domestic disturbance on September of 2020 on Gordon Drive in New Albany. That's where New Albany police officer John Davidson tried to de-escalate the incident by asking Beck to step out of a vehicle. Beck refused, instead driving the vehicle towards Officer Davidson. Officer Davidson then shot Beck and the vehicle 4 times.
He put his life literally on the line against an over 3,000-pound vehicle coming at him. That's courage. That's a hero.
Floyd County prosecutor Chris Lane says this incident is like several domestic violence situations that continue to put so many in danger, and the penalties are getting stiffer.
Domestic incidents lead or can lead to serious violent felonies. In this case, an A misdemeanor domestic violence is now a level 3, which is 16 years.
Lane's team is now introducing an initiative to hold violent offenders accountable. Floyd County, like other areas in Kentuckiana, is dealing with an uptick in domestic disputes. That includes the 2022 shooting death of New Albany mother Brandy Douglas, who was killed by her husband Sherrock Douglas. He was found guilty of murder and sentenced to life in prison in October, and now we know Sebastian Beck's fate. Prosecutors are also starting a new program shifting resources to meet the challenge.
We're going to continue to involve ourselves in training with the New Albany Police Department to make sure that they have all the tools that we can offer them in our help in responding to domestic violence.
Details on the program are limited right now, but we're told the prosecutor's office will be working closely with NAPD on enhanced training, with the hope it'll send a message that domestic violence won't be tolerated. In New Albany, Taylor Woods, WHAS 11 Night Team on your side.
And Sebastian Beck has already served 850 days in jail. That's more than 2 years, which will go toward his 16-year sentence. Now, since the 2020 incident, Officer Davidson has been promoted within the police department. Now, if you or someone you know needs help, the domestic abuse hotline is open 24/7. Just call the number on your screen. We also have a list of resources on our website. That's WHAS11.com. And in Louisville tonight, the man who police shot earlier this month after he allegedly ran from officers during a traffic stop will go back behind bars. Marvin Smith was on home incarceration, facing charges of fleeing from police and wanton endangerment, as well as several drug trafficking charges. The chase happened near Churchill Downs. Today, in court, the judge heard testimony from LMPD officers who say Smith pointed a gun with a light at them multiple times, something defense attorneys say body cam video disputes.
Our client got out and he ran, but the body-worn cameras that we've seen, and we've seen it, he didn't point his gun at anyone. He's a 250-pound man running as fast as he can in the opposite direction. He was shot in the back.
I know that he was running with a loaded handgun and refusing to drop it. He was running towards a public area where there were people in the roadway behind them, approaching the University of Louisville campus, multiple open restaurants, refusing to drop the handgun, and at some point, yes, he was shot.
And of course, those requests to drop the gun were heard multiple times in body camera video. Now, ultimately, the judge reinstated Smith's bond of $50,000, removing him from home incarceration and placing him right back in jail. The judge also found enough probable cause for the trial to move forward, sending it to a grand jury. And a woman is recovering after she was found walking along the interstate with a stab wound overnight. Police say they responded to reports of a woman walking on the Watterson Expressway near the Taylor Boulevard exit. When officers arrived, they found the woman suffering from a stab wound. We're told officers immediately rendered first aid until EMS arrived and transported her to the hospital. She is expected to survive. LMPD's domestic violence unit is handling this investigation. They say the suspect is still at large at this time. Also here at 11, an update in the Crystal Rogers investigation. Defense attorneys for the first man charged in connection with her death have asked for his bond to be lowered. Joseph Lawson is charged with tampering with physical evidence and conspiracy to commit murder. In a motion filed today, attorneys for Lawson called his $500,000 bond both excessive and oppressive. They argue because Lawson is a paraplegic and confined to a wheelchair, he cannot harm another person and would make it harder for him to flee. In an interview with our Shay McAllister weeks ago, attorneys for Joseph's father, Steve Lawson, who was also charged, believe police have built a case around solicitation.
Do you think that Brooks Houck paid Joseph Lawson to help in the murder of Crystal Rogers?
I think the Commonwealth has been trying to establish that a payment was made. As to who that payment was made to and when it was made, I'm not privy to that information yet.
Attorneys requested his bond be lowered to reflect his socioeconomic status and allow him to go on home incarceration. The family of Libby German is remembering the girl who would have been 21 years old this week. Libby was murdered nearly 7 years ago with her friend Abby Williams along a trail in Delphi, Indiana. In a Facebook post, Libby's grandmother said, quote, "Wow, today you turned 21. Time keeps marching on while we stand still. You are a young woman with an entire future ahead of you, but we only get to remember you as 14, end quote. She goes on to share that Libby is alive in their hearts and they miss her so much. Richard Allen, who you just saw there, is the man charged in the murders, and his trial is set to start in October of next year. However, there's been controversy surrounding the case between the defense team and the judge. Those questions will go before the Indiana Supreme Court. That's next month. And today, friends are remembering the life of an LMPD officer who died while off duty this week. Police say Officer Mark Cordes, you see there, suffered a medical emergency just Wednesday. That's yesterday. Cordes started working with the department back in 1991 and stayed until retirement. He was rehired in 2017 and worked in LMPD's 5th Division. One former officer who knew Cordes well tells us he was truly fit for service.
He had a heart of gold. He was a great guy. Again, very solid. You knew you could depend on him. We saw him so many times in very difficult situations do what needed to be done. He persevered, he got the job done, and then he was humble about it. He was a very good police officer and a very good man.
And we've now learned the arrangements for Officer Cordes. His visitation will be held next Friday, January 5th from noon until 8 at Highlands Funeral Home on Taylorsville Road. His funeral mass will be the following Saturday morning at 10 at St. Gabriel Catholic Church. That's on Bardstown Road. And UPS tonight has announced they will be closing the day sort hub at the Louisville Centennial Ground Hub. UPS says the closure is due to fewer packages in their network. The company says the closure will impact a small portion of their workforce in Louisville, and they say they are working to move impacted employees to new positions. In a statement, UPS said, quote, "Our employees are extremely important to us, and we understand the impact this may have on their families. We are working to minimize the impact to our people whenever or wherever, we can," end quote. The day sort hub will close on February 16th. New here on the night team, a second state has barred former President Donald Trump's name from appearing on its primary ballots. Maine joined Colorado in banning Trump under a part of the Constitution that bars insurrectionists from holding office. ABC's Melissa Adon has the latest case likely headed to the High Court.
A second state now says former President Donald Trump does not belong on the Republican primary ballot. Secretary of State Shenna Bellows citing Section 3 of the 14th Amendment following the January 6th insurrection. The Secretary of State in Maine disqualifying Trump, siding with a group of politicians, one Democrat, one Republican, and one independent, who say Trump was ineligible for the primary ballot because, having previously taken an oath to support the Constitution, Trump engaged in insurrection against the same. The former president criticizing the ruling. Trump's legal team says they will appeal to the state's highest court, the decision on the heels of Colorado's Supreme Court, which removed Trump from their ballot earlier this month. Unlike other states where the courts decide, in Maine, it was Bellows' decision alone. The former president's attorneys had warned, like Colorado's courts, she would reach a singular conclusion.
All of whom have been asked to engage in this type of in a disqualification, and every administrative official has declined to do that for good reason.
Republicans in Colorado have also appealed the state Supreme Court ruling to the U.S. Supreme Court. Meantime, in Michigan, the state Supreme Court rejecting an effort Wednesday to keep him off the state's primary ballot in 2024, declining to hear the case. Melissa Adon, ABC News, Los Angeles.
Now, the 14th Amendment was written in the years following the Civil War and was designed to keep former Confederates from holding office. Now, the U.S. Supreme Court has never ruled on Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which would make candidates ineligible if they were a part of an insurrection.